There's a way that so I've worked in the sports business for over 3 decades, and there's a way that I really enjoy starting meetings. It comes from my soccer background. Specifically, I worked for the Sounders for 6 years. Has anyone been to a Sounders match? I know we're not here to talk about Sounders specifically. Okay, Sounders. So you're familiar with boom, boom, clap? I think that's a fun way to start a meeting. If you guys, would you guys stand up for me? Just get a little energy going. So if you're not familiar, I'm going to do the boom, boom, and you give me the clap. Okay? And we'll do it a few times, and I'll speed it up a little bit, and we'll get the energy going. All right, ready? Ooh, that's good. We can do better. Ready? Yeah, that's it. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. The smiles and, there we go.
We're so sporty.
Sports.
We're just going to each briefly introduce ourselves, and then I guess I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Love it.
So Mel, you go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Obrakta. I grew up in the Seattle area, but I am a kook for sure. I graduated in 2017, so I'm really happy to be back. And this is my first time being back since graduating. And I was a part of Murrow Symposium when I was a student here, so it's really special to be back. But right after I graduated, I got an internship with the Seattle Sports Commission, which Kristi's repping like every single sports entity there is, which is amazing. But that's just a 10-week internship, and I knew I really wanted to work in sports. And I think right after that, I somehow convinced the Mariners to hire me, but life took me to Arizona instead. And I started working with a hockey team down there without having any hockey knowledge whatsoever. Growing up in Seattle, we didn't really have the background. And so I remember sitting in my interview saying, is it okay if I don't know anything about this sport? And they were like, oh yeah, as long as you can do the actual job, like you're totally fine. And I was like, great. I ended up totally falling in love with the game. If you've been to a hockey game, which many of you have, you understand how exciting it is, how fast-paced it is, how in your face it is, loud, bright, quick, and it totally captivated me. And so I was so excited to be working in the NHL with the Arizona Coyotes. And then, of course, 2020 happened. And I remember sitting at my desk probably 6 months prior to that, watching the ESPN announcement about NHL Seattle. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Hockey team in my hometown. I loved Key Arena. I grew up going to Sonics games and Storm games and concerts. I was like, that's cool that they're renovating that building. How amazing. And then I didn't really think about it until February of 2020 when my parents called me and they're like, something weird is happening. We don't really know what. And then on March 12th, I never went back to the office again. And that was a really weird time. I was about 2 interviews in with the Kraken, and they weren't the Kraken yet. But July of 2020, I found myself back in Seattle launching a sports franchise, which was so incredible. I've been with the team ever since in a couple different roles, but always on the partnerships team and always working with WaFd Bank.
There you go. Nice segue.
Kristi, how about you go?
Would you like to
I want you to go.
Okay. My name is Brian Jones. I went to Tulane University down in New Orleans. Yeah, sorry. I know. Go Green Wave. I can say that here. It's not a rival. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and New Orleans was about as far from Boulder, Colorado, from a cultural perspective as I could find. So that's why I chose it. Right out of school, I got an internship with the Denver Nuggets. I was an inside sales rep, and way back then it was a phone book, a literal phone book, and a literal phone with a cord, and just making calls to businesses to see about selling season tickets. There were 30 of us in that internship bullpen, and one by one, my fellow interns quit, and I was the last person in the room making calls, even though I dreaded it. I'll be totally honest, it was not the job I wanted to be doing. And they walked into the room and they said, hey, congrats, you got a full-time job with the Nuggets. And I said, if I'm going to do what I've been doing, I don't want it. And they're like, no, 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 this is the test. This is the grind. This is you proving that you can dial in and stay focused and make things happen. So over my sports business career, Denver Nuggets, Colorado Avalanche, I worked for a mile oval racetrack that hosted NASCAR and IRL events. I worked for a decade for the Seahawks. I worked for about 6 years with the Sounders FC. And most recently, I ran a professional rugby team that is based in Seattle. So a wide variety of sports experiences, almost always on the commercial side of things, leadership, revenue, partnership optimization. So there you have it.
And then.
And now.
Oh, and now, taking Mel's lead, Kristi and WaFd Bank are a client of I've opened and I run a small consulting agency that WaFd Bank is a client of. And so Kristi and leadership at WaFd Bank invite me in to maximize and optimize our Kraken relationship along with other relationships that we have in the sports space.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm Kristi Ellefson, 01 grad, Murrow. I did not think I was going to end up in where I am now. It's been, like Roger was saying, like you take lots of forward and backward steps. And I started out with just an internship at Rocky West or Hill and Knowlton up in Spokane. And I just kind of let my path kind of take me around. I worked in nonprofit for a little bit. I worked in life science and biotech. I quit my job, sold everything I owned, and traveled the world with my husband before kids, which was pretty scary, but awesome. And then came back to the Pacific Northwest, worked in biotech a little bit longer. The economy tanked in 08. I found a job at a dental insurance company, which I didn't think would be fun at all. But you look at everyone hates insurance and everyone hates going to the dentist. So I was working at Delta Dental and I was like, this isn't, I would say, a downside. It's an opportunity. So I kind of turned everything on its head, got involved in sports marketing, took over all the smile cams for the Seahawks, the Sounders, the Mariners. And I was like, dental can be fun, everybody. There's an opportunity here. Let's talk about smiles, not oral health. So I had a really, really awesome time doing that, a lot of community impact and corporate social responsibility work. And then I had an opportunity and I joined with WaFd Bank. And I've been serving on the sports commission for about 10 or 12 years and made my way to the board and got really involved with the teams. And so now I'm helping out with the Black Lives Matter and the Juneteenth parade, festivities and everything going on with FIFA World Cup. And I get to work with these awesome people with the execution of WaFd's relationship with the Kraken.
By the way, kudos to you for making dental insurance fun.
There's always an opportunity out there.
Kristi also makes banking really fun.
Banking is awesome fun. Okay, so here's the first question. So take us behind the scenes. From your guys' perspective, what does your role look like in executing the partnership that WaFd has with the Kraken? What are the key roles and responsibilities we have to ensure that all elements of the partnerships are executed and come to life? Do you want to go now?
Yeah, I'll start us off. I think the most unique aspect of working in partnerships is we get handed this contract as soon as it gets signed and we say, okay, now go do this, make this all come to life. And I think that's really just like the first step of what these relationships really mean. And it's so much more than just checking all of these contractual assets off. We're always going to make sure that WaFd signage looks impeccable and that everything, all their TV and radio spots are running correctly. But I think what really matters is we talk all the time and we know what needs to happen in order for like WaFd's goals and objectives to be made. I think the biggest part of my job and what I really try to pride myself on is being an extension of the brands that I work with. And so I really like to explain my job to anyone who doesn't really understand what partnerships are. I work for WaFd Bank and I get to use the Kraken and Climate Pledge Arena and Seattle Center as the tools that I'm given to achieve WaFd's goals and objectives. And I think that's really where the partnership piece comes in, because I need to not only understand what WaFd's objectives are, but also the Kraken and Climate Pledge Arena and what our brand objectives are, and kind of use all of the assets together to achieve everyone's goals. But in order to do that, you really, really need to understand the people that you're working with and the businesses that they're in and the industries that they're in and how they kind of fit into the sports industry and the entertainment industry. And that looks very different for a banking partner versus a sports medicine partner. But being able to balance all of that is kind of what my day-to-day actually looks and feels like.
Yeah, Mel and I are really close. I've got, and Jacqueline's another member of our team, and I've got them all on speed dial.
Yep.
We talk all the time, texts.
We have a group text,
emails. So we have to be really close.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about what the Kraken is doing is they don't treat their partners like sponsorships. You are a true partner. We do things together. If the Kraken don't look good, we don't look good. If we don't look good, the Kraken don't look good. So
I mean, you know,
Buoy's
like, where does this come from? This comes from, you know, a lot of collaboration and
creative
creativity.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. And the co-branding has always been very important. Buoy's got a little,
He lights up.
yeah, he lights up. He's got a little WaFd logo on his foot. All of these things that we've done together have been a collaborative effort, and we bounce ideas off each other. There's no bad ideas. They only lead to better ideas. And I love that on the back end, so much goes in on the back end, from like, you just get this list of assets of all of these things you have to execute. And you're like, oh my God, from signage to radio spots to LED lighting, ring lighting, all these different size and aspects and ratios. And it can be a nightmare, which is where Brian also comes in, keeping the wheels on the bus, and having to audit spots and all that stuff. And it's a lot to manage. So we have to be a good team for us to really fully execute this.
These deals are also long. So Kristi
Was
and
it
I,
5 years?
yeah, it's already been 5 years.
We just hit, oh, that's right.
Yes,
Oh my God.
but we'll probably be working together for as long as we're at these jobs for sure. But our contract lengths are, sometimes 7, 10, 15 years long. And so when you're working with one group and one agency, or sometimes like one individual for that long, you need to have a good relationship with them. It changes everything. If you're in the day-to-day and it's feeling like it's hard to get things done, that's when things really become a challenge. But when you have a really good relationship with these people that you're going to talk to for on a weekly basis for 10 years, it's important to have a really good baseline and some really good trust.
My original role in the Kraken relationship was because I had experience with the Colorado Avalanche and it sold lots of partnerships for the Avalanche, had a familiarity with NHL and, you know, what dasherboard location is going to get the most exposure and TV time. You know, where in a broadcast is the best place to have your 30-second spot or to have your drop in. So, you know, my role was very, very specific on the front end, the writing of the contract, the review of the contract, and then locking in assets within the contract that I knew would benefit WaFd Bank most. And then it leads to doing creative things. And you know, I wanted to second we meet every other week. And sometimes we don't have anything to talk about. You know, you're in the grind of the season, and we were just talking about the standings for NHL, and so those are the
we
things
don't need to talk about that
yeah,
anymore.
we don't need to. I quickly skipped over that one. But on other occasions, because you're speaking so frequently, Mel and Jacqueline do a great job of anticipating WaFd Bank's needs. They bring us relevant ideas. They're not just trying to sell us something else. You know, they're like, hey, you know, several meetings ago, you mentioned an interest in homelessness. Well, we just found out that we're doing this program. We're going to volunteer. You know, would you like to join us? And that seems like a simple thing, but it's pretty rare that, and no offense to any of WaFd Bank's other sports relationships, but there isn't that high a level of communication and anticipation and relevant thought behind those relationships. So Mel and Jacqueline, set the bar really high and the standard for communication relative to our partnership with them.
Okay. What communication skills and elements must exist for this true collaboration? So there's many moving parts, signage, like you said, advertising, in-game activations. So how do we coordinate, communicate, and problem solve to ensure that we deliver value for the bank, the team, and the fans?
I have a really good example of this. And I think Brian just touched on it. The anticipation of needs is a really big part of the team side. We sit in lots of meetings with our marketing team and our brand team, and things like initiatives or new initiatives will come up that Jacqueline and I or another team member and I will say, like, hit each other under the desk and be like, oh, we should talk to WaFd about that. And so that's a really big piece of it. I think one thing we have been trying to get really good at is using data to back up all of our decisions. And I know that's maybe a cliche these days, but it's a real example. And so 2 or 3 years ago, we had not a great save percentage with our goalies, but we have this awesome asset with WaFd Bank called Save of the Game. And contractually, we were supposed to run that every single game. We wanted to make sure that WaFd was getting their value out of that asset, that the fans were getting to see the content. And this is across all of our channels. So all of our own channels with social, digital, broadcast, radio. But with a bad save percentage, the engagement was looking really tough. The fan sentiment was getting a little negative. And so we had a hard conversation with WaFd of like, hey, this is really not performing well. This is not making our fans happy. We need to adjust. Here's the solution we have in place. We're just going to drop down our quantity of how often we're going to run this, but we're going to run it on more channels. So we're still going to try to fit in as many posts as we can, as many spots. Luckily, WaFd is very understanding and also fans of the Kraken, which help. But it's the best thing for both brands to have that positive fan sentiment when you're seeing these assets that are typically team performance related not be performing well, but being able to adjust in real time. And I think that's one thing that success across the board gets reached when we can use data to say, hey, this isn't working, but we have this solution. What do we think? And everyone is aligned across the board.
Let me add one thing to that.
Yeah.
So Brad Good is the chief marketing officer for WaFd Bank, and he's a hockey guy. He's a huge Red Wings fan from Detroit. So he's all about hockey, and Save the Game, is something that he pays close attention to. And what Mel and Jacqueline did was not only pivot to something that was going to be more valuable in the long run, but they helped solve a problem because the broadcaster for the Kraken at the time, because the Kraken weren't making a lot of quality saves, they would highlight the opposing team's save and call it the save of the game.
Which we did not like.
Within the Kraken broadcast.
Not okay.
Which, again, counterintuitive to do that, but they were doing it because there weren't enough options on the Kraken front. But, I probably had, we probably had 10 calls with the broadcast partner saying, please don't highlight the opposing team's keeper it's brutal. The fans are just like turning on us at this point. So
the solution we came up with was saves of the game. So we could pick any save from the game. It wasn't just one.
Yeah.
It was a good pivot. And being able to pay attention, like Brian's done a lot of auditing for us. Sometimes like when we work with other partners, media partners, like they don't run the right ad or the updated copy or these types of things. And it takes a village to like monitor all this stuff with the quantity of assets that are out there. It's really hard to keep track of everything. So it does take a village to make sure that we're watching out for each other to make sure that those things are running correctly in the right spots and whatnot.
Mel and Jacqueline have done a great job. It's never contentious, right? I mean, WaFd Bank will, I'll see something, Kristi will see something, Brad will see something, and we'll bring it to Mel's attention and she'll say, great, we're on it, heard, let us work through the solution to that. And it comes soon thereafter. again, a rarity, that I've seen in partnerships where you're getting that immediate fix, you're getting the immediate feedback, you're feeling like your take on something is accepted, and it's it's credit to you.
Yeah, you feel heard as a brand partner. You feel heard, you feel seen, you feel like you are important, and it's not just the big shiny sports brand, doing their thing. And what I also love too, you're like, you do more in make goods than like you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's like 10,000 of these other things, and so you really do feel like we're looking out for each other in a very positive way. Okay. What does success in the partnership look like, and how do we evaluate what's working, what's not, what needs improvement, and then how do we keep ideas creative, fun, and engaging?
I'm glad I used the WaFd Save the Game example. I think, and success looks different for any partner. I think when we're chatting with WaFd, it's how can we create these really incredible giveaways to capture these young Kraken fans to get them into the WaFd bank system earlier. Obviously, like as a banking system, they want customers. And so we want to make sure that we're finding really, really tangible ways to get fans to understand that WaFd Bank is a partner. And so we'll make sure we're measuring that throughout the season, make sure that our fans are recognizing WaFd over other banks in the area as the official bank of the Seattle Kraken and Climate Pledge Arena. And we measure and listen to fans and make sure that we're hitting those metrics and reporting back on them on a regular basis. I think that's one thing that we're always trying to get better at, is making sure that WaFd always knows kind of like where they're at. And like Kristi said, we want to make sure that they're seeing our effort. And so that comes in a lot of different fashions. But I think the fun part of our job is this stuff.
So yeah, these are all for our Kids Day kind of game day takeover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first year we did these cute little lunch boxes.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, that's safe. That's cool. That's like, people are going to use that. And I would start seeing, when I would drop my kids off for school, I'd see them carrying around the little lunch boxes. And then the following year, we're like, okay, what are we going to do next? And Mel comes, she's like, we're going to do buoy slippers.
It also takes some serious convincing when I say we're going to turn our mascot's feet into slippers, and everyone on the other side of the call goes, are you sure?
And we were like, people think we're kind of boring because we're a bank. We're like, no, we're not. We're fun. We're going to give out buoy slippers. And then this year we did this adorable little buoy light. And like the first time we saw the little rendering of it, we were all just squealing. It was just so cute. And we were like, yeah, we got to go for it. And so we try to be bold and engaging. And if the kids don't like the giveaway, then they're not going to like, the team or us. So we have to make sure it's engaging for everybody. And the more we can ingratiate ourselves with the parents and the fans and whatnot, the more likely they're going to love our brands as well. But it's not also just single branded like ideas. So we were partnered with Greenlight, which is a financial literacy app that we use to help all of our clients can have access to this for their kids. And it helps them be financially literate, learn about budgeting, saving money and whatnot. And then there's just a cute little hockey bookmark. And so we try to find ways to be relevant and make sure it's not a forced fit. We're not trying to shove financial literacy down people's throats, but we know it's important. And if we have an opportunity to give that knowledge to the kids through the promotions and giveaways, we're going to do it.
Not a new idea, but one that has worked for WaFd Bank and the Kraken is a co-branded debit card. So, like dental insurance, banking is best when it's boring, but it doesn't have to be boring in all aspects of banking. So, a co-branded debit card, we've got over 7,000 of them in the market now. That's new deposits at WaFd Bank. That's interactivity with the bank. That's future small business loans to the bank. So the meat and potatoes of the benefit outside of exposure and awareness and fandom that WaFd Bank gets out of it is proven by deposits in the bank and loans and debit cards, and now you can carry the Kraken in your pocket because WaFd Bank wanted to make that happen, as did the Kraken.
We spend a big part of the off season looking at every single asset and making sure it still makes sense and it's still achieving everyone's goals. But I do want to say WaFd is so much more than just a partner of ours that benefits the fans. Their bankers are actually coming to our front office next week to do a financial literacy luncheon. And so I think the partnership measurements of success are always fan facing, but there's also another element of how do we work together as businesses? And WaFd is always benefiting our staff and our players by being kind of their access to financial literacy as well. But it goes so much deeper than what is just available to the fans and why this partnership is a success.
Yeah. All right. So Mel, when you were at WSU, was this the career that you were pursuing or hoping to end up in? And how did WSU prepare you for your career now?
So no, sports was always a little bit on my radar, and I worked in the athletic department here to help pay for a little bit of school, which was awesome. I did laundry for the track and cross country teams, and I set up practice. So if there's any track and cross country kids in here, hey. But I knew I loved the behind the scenes work of sports, and I didn't know there was a sports management program here until Tony told me about it, which is cool. But I was already in the Murrow school, and I was like, I really like these classes. And so I ended up doing both and walked upstairs my senior year and was like, does anyone need an intern? And the one door that opened and was like, yeah, come talk to us was IMG College, which is now Learfield. It was a third-party multimedia rights holder for WSU Athletics at the time. And I was like, great. I can start tomorrow. What do you want me to do? And so that's when I got my kind of first peek into the sponsorship world. And I quickly realized this was the route for me. I made a ton of lasting relationships. I'm still friends with our general manager and the whole radio team that was here at the time. It's truly incredible that the relationships I've built as a senior here at WSU have truly lasted my entire life. But it was definitely a pipe dream of like, wow, if I can keep a job in sponsorship forever, that would be amazing. And I feel extremely fortunate that that's how it's worked out. But WSU prepared me with the connections I made 100%. Being able to just walk upstairs literally in an athletic department and say, who can I help? That will go a long way. It allows you to get that real world experience and put something on your resume that not everyone is able to do. But this place encourages opportunities like that, which is really amazing. I was so excited to be able to stay in this route, but WSU definitely helped open the doors for me, which is amazing.
Ryan, when you were running your own consulting business, what tools and experience would you tell students they need to have if they want to start their own company and go down that path?
Whew. Guts. So I was about 20 years into professional sports career, but I have a number of entrepreneurs in my family, and I call me a glutton for punishment. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take my 20 years of learning and skill and connections and see if I can do this on my own. Part of the motivation was, family members who encouraged it and that I saw thrive in, as entrepreneurs and small business owners. Part of it was the network of people that I had met over those 20 years, both in Colorado and in the state of Washington, and a trust in myself and the network that I had built that people would trust me, even if I didn't have Seattle Seahawks or Sounders FC next to my name. Certainly the experience, but not as a backstop. And it was amazing. I mean, scary as hell. But led me to working with Special Olympics USA Games for several years. Led me to working for an equestrian team called the Paris Panthers that Jennifer Gates owns, and traveling to Miami Beach and watching horses jump over things. I would never have thought that I would show up there, right? But I did. It led me to a conversation with the Seattle Seawolves, the professional rugby team in Seattle, They're
We're also a partner.
yeah, which
We have a
WaFd
Seawolves
Bank,
debit card.
very, very generously supports. And the founders of the Seawolves were looking to start a team, and they didn't know what they were doing. And they're like, "Hey, you've been in the sports business for 20 years. Maybe you know more about what you're doing than we do." And I said, "Maybe let's find out." And now the Seawolves they just won their first regular season match of their 9th season, and I'm a minority owner in the team. So just it's a journey, highs and lows. It's part of it, but I always wanted to challenge myself. I rose quickly through the teams that I worked with. Held executive level positions, and then for me it was like, okay, how else can I challenge myself? What other ways can I grow? And do I want to bet on myself to an extent? And I've really enjoyed doing just that. So building confidence, getting the skills. Like I said, I was 21 years ahead of where you will be when you get your first job. When I decided to break out on my own, I wouldn't have broken out on my own from the beginning. Needed the experience first, but just following your path. I thought Roger said it really well this morning. Being your authentic self, challenging yourself. Don't shy away from a challenge. And the most fun I've had and the most successful I've been is when I've said yes to things, yes to a meeting, yes to something that I thought would make me very uncomfortable, and did for a period of time, but then got more comfortable. And I said this to several students yesterday, including one sitting in the front of the room. One of the things I'd recommend, and Roger said it as well, but public speaking. If you can find ways to get the reps of public speaking, it's uncomfortable in the beginning. You'll get the butterflies, you'll get the anxiety, you'll get a little sweat on your brow. Every once in a while I have a Will Ferrell moment where I don't know what I said, but someone will approach me afterwards and say, "Hey, that was great." And I'm like, "Thank goodness." But I would say public speaking, because getting to do this, it's a real honor and it's a pleasure. And, ultimately passing some of this knowledge down, provides me with a really good feeling. So thank you.
Great. So if I were the
Do
moderator.
you want me to ask your question?
Sure, ask me my
Okay.
question.
Let's see. Kristi, what career steps did you take that led you here? Is this where you thought you would be while you were a Murrow student?
No, I initially thought I was going to be teaching English, like ESL, English as a second language. Then I took a marketing class, and it all went downhill from there. And I fell in love with marketing. And then I have to say, my stats class, I love doing surveys and data and looking where, when you look at data tells you something, and data tells a story. And so I wanted to use my skills with like data and storytelling and crafting messages. And so after I did a stint with Hill & Knowlton PR agency, I found also myself pushing a green couch in a parade in Colville for their 4th of July parade. And Cricket was like a communications cell phone company. You still might have heard of it. Big launch years ago. So I was pushing this giant green couch in a parade. And I was like, well, this is also weird but fun. And then I got an opportunity if Roberta said this, if you had Roberta when she was here, probably, I don't know, maybe not. If you can write, you can eat. And that'll be the same today as it is tomorrow, even with ChatGPT and like all of the AI stuff. You still have to know how to feed it good prompts. And if you feed it crappy prompts, you're going to get crappy copy. So you still have to know how to write. And so I started doing more writing. And then I moved into nonprofit as a development director for a small nonprofit in Spokane, writing their donor newsletter and doing donor outreach and fundraising. And then I started, getting more integrated with the parents, and I started writing grants. And it was a wonderful opportunity to be in the nonprofit world because that is a huge opportunity for everyone in this room too, is to be a nonprofit, do development, fundraising. I think everyone should work for a nonprofit for a year or two to understand the needs of your community, to be really truly integrated. Rising tide lifts all boats. So doing that community involvement stuff was very near and dear to my heart. From there, I was like, let's go try life science and biotech. I knew nothing about any of the weird stuff I was trying to sell. But I would go and I would talk to the lab rats. I would go and talk to the engineers and the scientists and like talk to me like a 5-year-old and tell me what you do and how this thing works and what cell lysis is and hardcore storage for DNA samples and cell lysis and all this weird stuff. Traveled the world doing international trade shows, which was so cool, like globally, locally, across the United States. Finding out what tchotchkes people liked and things like that. And so that was an adventure in and of itself. Quitting my job, having the guts to sell everything I own and take a trip around the world. Uncomfortable, scary, but I wouldn't be the person I am today without taking those risks and putting myself out there. And then getting back to the United States and working in life science again, more global trade shows, writing information pamphlet for water reclamation office construction sites. Like my first day on the job, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm gonna go talk to the engineer, the person who made this product. I'm gonna figure out how it works. And so I wrote the user manual. When the economy tanked in 2008 and I applied for Delta Dental, they said, okay, you've done all these weird things, but like, what makes you think you can understand dental insurance? I'm like, if I can write a water reclamation user pamphlet my first week on the job, I'm pretty sure I can figure out insurance. I'm like, you're right, it's not that hard. So launching that and with recognizing that sports bring people together. They're unifying. It doesn't matter what party you are, what religion you are, like everybody loves their sports teams. Fans are fans, and we can agree on that. And when you affiliate your brand with a sports team, you get that afterglow, that little love affair with the brand and the team. And so I really love building partnerships and bringing people together. Watching the smile cams when I was at Delta was like, it was so invigorating to see like my brand up there and people actually care about it, and that's cool. And when I moved to WaFd Bank, they had the same kind of affiliation with their teams and so passionate and really cared. True partnership in a way that I really believed in. And we also sponsor the Torrent, which is the women's hockey team, the Seattle Storm, because everybody watches women's sports, right? So we really believed in that. And so we wanted to show that we are the bank that also supports women in sports. And then I also make sure that all of our, with my nonprofit background, all of our sports sponsorships have some kind of community impact component to them. We're giving out big checks on the ice. We're donating to nonprofits. We're integrating them into all the things that we do because, again, our community is important to us. And if we can do something with our nonprofits that we work with, through the teams that we work with, that's even a better uplift for them. We sponsor a segment called Tide Pools with the Kraken, and where they bring in, and they came to us with this because they're like, you care about your community. This is a great opportunity. They listened and they brought this opportunity to us where we bring, 20 or 30, 20 different people from nonprofits for sometimes it's a theme night for Pride Night or Indigenous Peoples Night or what have you. And they ask us, what nonprofits do you want to have come? I manage our foundation as well, so I get to give all the money back to the communities that we serve. And so incorporating those nonprofits into Tide Pools, we give them a grant. Maybe they might be a client of ours or not, but then we say, hey, do you want to go to Tide Pools game? And they're like, yes. And so we get them tickets and we get survey data back from them. And we take that information and we use that as well. But it's the right thing for us to do. It's a perfect fit.
Totally.
And love bringing all of those little different components together. Okay. Final question. For students who are interested, I need my glasses, in any of this time of work related to the roles that we play, what should students start doing now to prepare for their futures? Skills, experiences that they should have to develop and pursue their career?
I would say that if you don't know Mike Flood, who is standing at the back of the room. He was a mentor for me when I started with the Seattle Seahawks. He was one of the first people I met. And Mike, I distinctly remember like my day 2, you're like, hey, have you ever been to a Sonics game? We should go to a Sonics game together. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Let's go check out Key Arena. So Mike Flood, turn around and wave at Mike Flood if you don't mind. Meet Mike, very influential, bleeds crimson and silver, and is just a staple in the Seattle community. It's good to see you, Mike. Skills, we talked about public speaking. I won't go back into that again. Take chances, say yes to things. The best example I can give you of a yes that I said to something early in my career that really shaped me was I was working for the Denver Nuggets. I was selling tickets, and the game presentation director decided they didn't want to do that job anymore. And it was a small enough staff that they're like, hey, any volunteers who might like to run the Nuggets game, headset on, calling the lights and the music and being at center court. And I'm like, that sounds interesting. I'm 24 and I have nothing better to do. And so I got to see Jordan and Pippen and Malone and Stockton and all these guys. And, my like 15 seconds of fame, I'll be quick about this. We're playing the Lakers. It's Magic. It's Kareem. And Nick Van Exel, I'm dating myself, but Nick Van Exel is their point guard at the time. And Nick takes exception to a referee's foul that is called. And the referee comes over to me, and I'm sitting next to the PA announcer, and the referee's telling us who the foul's on and what the foul is. And all of a sudden, the referee comes over the bench, and I have to do this to catch him. And it was Nick Van Exel came over and like shoved him over the bench. And so, it was on TV and Nick got suspended for the rest of the year, and it was on SportsCenter and all these things, but it was always me going like this. So I had a good friend who visited China and found an NBA magazine in China where I was like a full spread in this NBA magazine, doing one of these things. So the point is just say yes to things, because clearly that never would have happened to me had I not raised my hand and said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to call some music.
I'll be quick as well to make sure we have time for questions. Okay. I think a couple, if I could very much so just boil it down. Experience is king. Go out and do all the internships. I think saying yes to everything you can is extremely important. I had someone really early on say to me, you either move up or you move out in your job. And I love that I heard so many people have internships with like summer leagues in far off, bizarre places, because those types of experiences where you get to do all of the things are going to be what set you apart when you're interviewing for the big kid job. And they say like, well, if you need to step in and do the game press thing, can you do it? And you can. And doing that really early on in your career when you can is so, so, so important. So do all the things. Apply for all the internships, shadow, ask questions. It's the best way to figure out, do I even like this industry? Do I even like this job? And I think that will give you a really good answer of what's going to be a good fit for you. And I love Brian's been saying, be a yes person, but I think the answer to every single question should be yes and. It's honestly how we approach WaFd Bank. We say yes to literally everything. And if it's even not a yes, we say yes and let's tweak it this way and maybe let's try it this way. It's immediately allowing you to build trust and build a positive relationship with the person you're working with. But being able to say yes and creates so much room for opportunity, and it allows you to push yourself into or out of your comfort zone, but into a territory that gives you the opportunity to be the positive person, which goes a really, really long way. I think that's it.
Mine would be uncomfortable. If you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not growing. If you're super comfortable, then great, you're doing a good job, but you can do better at something else
Mhm.
maybe. And so just put yourself out there and be a little uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I would also say network the shit out of your
Yes.
everything. Just meet people, volunteer with an organization because you're going to meet the CEO at some point or the development director, and they're going to know someone who works for the team or is on another nonprofit or whatever, and you're going to build your network. And if you don't think you're going to like, I'm never going to break into this industry, if your face is everywhere, they can't ignore you. So if you're volunteering for every event where they've got a table and whatnot, and you're there checking them in, you're like, oh, hey, good to see you. I applied for a internship. Would love to maybe talk to you about that afterwards. Like, make it so they can't get away from you. And just show up everywhere, and you're going to meet some great people, make some great connections, and just you're going to be able to grow, and you'll never know the opportunities you're going to have. My friend Mark Dice back there, I first met Mark when I was at Delta Dental. We needed a PR agency. He owned one. He blew us away with their pitch. And I have been using Mark's people forever. They have been the best people I've ever worked with, true partnerships in public relations. And I couldn't have found a better network of people there either. I met my boss, Kathy, via the sports commission. I was like, hey, I put myself out there looking for a new position, and Kathy's like, come work for me. And I was like, awesome. And so you just never know where those things are going to lead you and the opportunities that you're going to have when you put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to questions. Can someone run a mic or here?
What was a skill or lesson that you had to learn that you didn't think you would need in your job today or jobs you've had?
Okay, great. This is on. I stole this mic from right here. Have hard conversations. If you can get reps doing that, just like public speaking, it's really important. It's not a fun thing to practice, and like you'll have to find ways to put yourself in this position, but volunteer to be the one that has to deliver some bad news and figure out a way to spin it, provide a solution, and practice having those hard conversations. It'll happen more often than you think, just because life and work and all the things. But I think that's one thing, unexpectedly so, that I do a lot more than I was ready for.
Mine, I would say, learn how to like manage budgets. When I was at Delta, my director left, and I was just kind of standing there like, what do I do? No one's going to pick up these things, and it was going to take 3 or 6 months to get a new director in. And so I just learned how to do the budget, and I took an opportunity. I said, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take care of my team. I'm going to make sure that this is taken care of. I didn't know how to do it, but I went to accounting. I said, show me how to do this. I acquired a new skill, and if they couldn't let me go because they would have no idea where the money was going. So make yourself invaluable by learning those new skills, and budgeting was one of them for me.
It's a Ted Lasso, but be curious. It goes along with what they both just said. If you can learn a little bit of something about a lot of things, you're pretty dangerous. Great to dive deep in areas that you're really passionate about, but being able to speak to general business practices and ideas, and there's never a time that being curious is a bad thing. Ask questions. The being uncomfortable it's funny because people avoid asking questions. You'll hear a term or something that you don't know, and it'll just fly by, and you won't take the opportunity to ask what that is. And if you do, it just connects so many dots in that one spot versus wondering or having to Google it later. So yeah, be curious.
Ask a question, get a prize.
It is 11, so
We take one or
one
two?
more? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question for Brian. So were you still with the Nuggets when Stan Kroenke bought the franchise? And
I
if
was.
so, what are some challenges of working for a franchise undergoing like new ownership? Thank you.
That's a good question. The quick answer is the Nuggets went through 3 or 4 owners while I was there. And during one of those transitions, it may have been during Kroenke Sports Enterprises transition, the Avalanche came in. So we were one staff doing 2 professional sports franchises at once. And we're talking about definitely not a specialized, I was doing game presentation for, that's crazy. But I don't, ownership change, it doesn't have my attention in a way that just being nimble and willing to do whatever it takes. Owners are going to change. They'll bring in different attitudes and philosophies. But if you're really good at what you do, then you're going to be good there, or you're going to be good somewhere else. Absolutely.
Okay, well, you can find us afterwards and come ask us questions. We'll be out and about. And if you
Thanks
want
all.
something, come up and grab something.